Dear students, today we will try to understand the idea of nanotechnology and physics behind it. So, before starting nanotechnology and nanophysics, we must understand that what is matter. Suppose we have a solid or a liquid, a gas, and then jointly we name this as a matter. So in general we classify matter as solid, liquid and gas. Now in solid, if there is some arrangement, that is the solid, as we understand that the solid is made up of molecules, and if further the atoms are arranged then in some fashion, then we define it as a crystalline solid. Otherwise, if there is no arrangement, we name that as amorphous solid. So this we know. And further, in case of crystalline, if the periodicity means order is same throughout the material, there are no gaps or faults in between, we name then that as single crystalline. And if not, if the periodicity is limited up to some distance, that is, these are some periodic zones, this is some another periodic zone, this is some another periodic zone, and this is another periodic zone, and in between we have fault or boundaries, then we define this as polycrystalline solid. Means both are ordered, but there is order without any fault, and here we have ordered zones separated by some faults. And here further the ordered zones, we name them as grains, sometimes crystallites and sometimes particle size, although there is difference between particle size, grain size and crystallite size, that we will not go further in detail, but in general we name them as grains. So here only we understand that in case of single crystalline material, there is only one grain. They are single grain material because there are no grain boundaries. However, in case of polycrystalline, there are grains. So, and these are grain boundaries. When there are grain boundaries, if we look at this material further, this is the surface area of this material, and these inside the boundary also considered as a surface area. Okay, so we say that when the coarse single grain material are transformed to multi-grain material, surface area increases. So if the grain size here is of the order of micrometer, we define these material as micro materials, and the technology which come out of these material is named as microtechnology. And if the size of this grain is from 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer, we name these materials as nanomaterials. So what are nanomaterials? They are polycrystalline material where the particle or grain size is limited from 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer. And the technology which comes out from this material is named as nanotechnology. Now why this field of physics is so, and what is nanophysics? The nanophysics means studying or exploring the physics of material which has size of what? Size of grains or size of the particles from the 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer. So from here the nanotechnology or nanophysics and then nanotechnology originates. Now why these materials are of much importance and why people have attention toward it? Because the surface to volume ratio is quite high. Here suppose here both have same volume, but in this case surface area is more. So surface, when we reduce the size from 100 nanometer to maybe 90 nanometer, 100 to maybe 90 or to 80 to maybe 20 or to 10, then this factor dominates, that is surface to volume ratio. Surface to volume ratio becomes quite high, and that is why the properties of these materials are very different from these single crystalline or amorphous materials. Why? Because if the surface to volume ratio is high, obviously they will have different optical properties, different magnetic properties, different chemical properties, different electrical properties, and by reducing the size means, by reducing the size, if we are making a material of say 100 nanometer, 90 nanometer, 80 nanometer, 20 nanometer, or of 10 nanometer and even smaller, all these materials will have different properties than their starting materials. That is why nanotechnology got attention, because from the same material, without doping, just by changing the surface to volume ratio, by increasing the surface to volume ratio more and more, the various properties material can be obtained, means new materials can be engineered without doping. So that is why nanotechnology got attention of scientists, and many materials are being explored in nano form. So this is some introduction about nanotechnology. I hope you understood it.